Hello my friends, welcome to Rain Francis Art. My name is Rain. Today I'm pulling out the watercolors and I'm going to show you how I painted this really creepy, scream-like looking ghost. So let's begin. This is what I'll be using for today's painting. I always use Strathmore watercolor cold press paper. It's the 300 series and it's 9 by 12 inches, 140 pound. I have it landscape today, and I have already taped down my paper here with masking tape, my canvas that is. And for brushes, I always have my large round brush. I think it's a number 8 or a number 10. I always say this too. I've used it so much that the writing has worn off and I don't remember what size it is. I also have a number 2 round, a number 4 round, and a number 4 liner. I'm not sure which ones I'm going to use, but I will list it all in the description after. I have my watercolor pencil. It's just a blue color that I'm going to use to outline my ghost. You don't need a watercolor pencil. I just use it because I have it. You could always use a regular coloring pencil or a pencil if you like. I don't like using a regular lead pencil because I find that it smudges with the paint. And as for paints, today I'm going to be using this brand here of Pan paints. It's Pretty Excellent. It goes by another name, but I can't read the writing here. And it's just, like I said, Pan paints. And I think I'm going to be sticking to whites, blues, and maybe the Payne's gray. And since I'm running out of white here, I have a tube of titanium white. It's the HWC brand. Okay, so that's what I have for supplies here. I have some water, I have some paper towels, and I think that's it. I have my hair dryer because I will be using my hair dryer to dry the layers in between layers, I guess. And I always bring out my Bob Ross cards to inspire us. For today, what should we keep in mind for some Bob Ross inspiration? These are just little playing cards, but they have, each card has a different quote from Bob Ross from his Joy of Painting show, which, by the way, I have watched every single one, and I think there are more than 20 seasons, maybe 30. I can't even remember. They're all free on YouTube, by the way, if you want to go to Bob Ross's YouTube channel. I can link that too in the description. So let's see, what does Bob Ross want us to know today? Be so very light, be a gentle whisper. I think he's referring to when you're doing certain painting techniques. What did he used to say? A little air, a little hair and some air, or something like that. Be so very light, be a gentle whisper. I like that. And this goes well with life too. Be a gentle whisper. You don't have to be a boisterous scream. Be a gentle whisper. Whisper. Oh, that's great. All right, so I'm going to get started. Now, for today's painting, I'm going to start with an outline. I don't normally do that, but I've started to enjoy doing that more. And because it's a watercolor pencil, it'll blend in nicely, but I don't mind having a bit of an outline. So I've got my ghost here, the outline. I don't know if you're going to be able to see because I'm doing a very light outline. Just the outline of ghost, like that. And I'm going to give myself a few little reference points because I want to do some areas that are darker that shows maybe the underneath part of the sheet. It's funny how we call this a ghost because it's really just a sheet, isn't it? Okay. And I'm going to actually draw out the eyes right now. And I'm going to give him a big, scary mouth. All right. There, that's just my really, really quick general outline. And now what I'm going to do is take my palette. I have an extra palette here just an extra palette, and I'm going to put a little bit of blue in the palette, and when my dog settles down, there we go. I'm going to put a little bit of a very light blue. So I think it's going to be this one, and that's called Sky Blue. So that's this one here. I believe it's this one here. Yes, it's this one here. Sky Blue. I'm going to put that in my palette here. And I'm going to add a bunch of water to it because I want it to be really, really pale. I don't want my ghost to be blue. Oh, I don't want my ghost to be sad. I don't want my ghost to be blue. Just adding a lot of water to it. Because I'm going to do many, many layers. I think. That's what I think. So I'm just going to go over the entire ghost with this wash. And this is a wet on dry technique. I want to make sure I don't erase the lines that I did for the face. Because it is a watercolor pencil, right? So water will blend it. I hope there isn't a glare for you guys. And like I said, in between layers, I'm going to have to use my hair dryer to dry it up. I lost one eye there. Why don't I try to find it again? Oh, it's okay. I can paint it in later. So like I said, I'm going to dry with my hair dryer. So my first layer is dry. I'm going to put some of that titanium white directly onto my palette here because I'm probably going to be using quite a bit of it, and I'm going to mix that with water as well. I just want to close it up so it doesn't dry out. Okay, and I'm going to just put some water into another one of the palettes here. And I'm going to pull some of the white out and mix it in with that water. I don't suggest that you do this over your canvas, but I'm doing it just to show you what I'm up to here. So I'm just rinsing off my brush because I have a little bit too much white on it, and I'm tapping it on a paper towel. And I'm going to do a layer of white over the whole ghost just to see what that looks like. It's titanium white, so it's not all that transparent, but I did add a lot of water, so. This may, I think I'm about to make up a word, this may de-blue it a little bit. Okay. I have 5 dogs and a cat in my room, so you will hear background noises. So my friends, again, I'm going to dry this with my hair dryer, and when it's dry, I will show you the next step. Now the next color that I'm going to use is Payne's Gray, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put some into my palette here because I want very, very light layers. I don't want dark layers. When I get to the mouth and the eyes, then I will probably have a darker layer, but until then I want this to be light. And again, don't do this over your canvas. I'm just showing you what I'm doing. Adding some water. There we go. And I'm going to take, let's see, I'm going to take my number 4 round brush. Let me just move my paints over. And I'm just gonna settle down, Benny. My puppy is digging for gold on the floor. Okay, so I want to add a little bit of a shadow. And you see how white this is? How light this is, I mean? I think I'm going to use my large brush. Actually, that's going to work really well. I'm just cleaning it off and dabbing it on a paper towel. And I'm going to put this side of the ghost in the shadow, and I want a loose painting. I'm not interested in perfection at all. Oh, and there's my stomach. I'm putting a little bit of shading, that's all. Maybe some areas down here. And some areas down here. It's very interesting having a puppy. He just does not settle down. But I love him. So I'm just cleaning off my brush, and I'm going to get some clear water and just use it to blend around that gray. There we go. And once again, I'm going to dry my painting. I just noticed something, my friends. You see these light areas here? That's actually the sun coming through a few weak spots in my curtain. So I'm going to put something up there and hope that that will keep. There we go. I think that's a little better. I don't want you to have a distorted view of what I'm doing here, even though this is kind of a distorted painting that I'm doing. What I'm going to do next is I am going to add a little bit more of that gray. I'm doing lots and lots of layers for this. There are some areas that are darker than others. And I'm kind of tapping. I'm running out of that gray there. Oh. More movement from the puppy. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit more of the Payne's Gray from my palette. I'm going to do that off camera here because I really don't want to get any of that on my ghost. There we go. This might be a little darker, so I'm going to put a little shadow underneath him. I'm just going to do this to soften it up. And when that's dry, I'm going to come in and I'm going to make a little bit more of a dark area to show the difference between the ghost and the shadow. But again, I'm going to pause to dry up my painting. So I'm going to take my number 4 liner brush here and I'm going to wet it a little bit to get that nice fine tip. And I'm going to grab I'm going to grab the Payne's Gray, but I'm going to take it directly from my pan. And this is going to be quite dark. And I'm going to do a little bit just a little bit of an outline. Oh, what's the matter, Benny? I think my puppy's looking at the cat. He's just so curious. You see what I'm doing? Just a very thin outline, and it's nothing perfect here. My painting is dry, so I know I'm not going to get my sleeve all wet. Just to help with it. Oh, you guys, be careful. I may have to give someone a timeout there. I've just got my liner brush wet and I'm blending just so it's not so stark. But I am going to come in and put more Payne's Gray into that because I do want to see some of my lines. But like I said, I want this to be kind of a loose painting, you know, nothing perfect. But I think a few lines would be nice. Well, that's really dark. I'm going to lighten that up. That's too dark. Okay. My dog is distracting me, so I'm going to try to focus here. He's chewing on his pineapple toy, and it makes a lot of noise. There. I just took off all that dark stuff with a paper towel. Now, let me concentrate. A little bit of water and a little bit of Payne's Gray. That's really nice. I wanted that effect. That's what I wanted. Sort of crisscrossing lines a little bit. And I'm going to try to do the same thing at the bottom here, kind of outlining those areas that I made the Payne's Gray a little dark. Very loosely though. So you see what I'm doing? It kind of gives the ghost a little bit of a better outline, a little bit, you know? And while I have my Payne's Gray on my brush, why don't I just paint in the eyes again? This painting reminds me of a drawing that I did for my kids' art channel, How to Draw a Ghost. That's called Rain Francis Art for Kids. It's in my About section, and I have a lot of fun with that one. Okay, let me put a few lines in here. I am going to blend these lines that are on him here. So I'm saying him. I don't know if it's a him or her. But yeah, I'm not going to leave these lines like that. Benny, what are you squeaking about? So I'll take my, I'll take my big brush, and it's just wet, just to blend. Because I want the idea of some lines, but I don't necessarily want them to look like lines here. You see what I mean? Just the idea of some lines, some shadows. I've got a clean brush and I'm kind of wiping it off here. A little water on my brush and I'm blending this area here. Okay, and I'm going to lightly blend around here. Like I said, I don't want to really see lines on the ghost itself. The contour, yeah, that's good. I'm good with that. He has to choose now to chew on that pineapple. God bless him. Hey Benny, didn't you listen to Bob Ross? Be so very light, be a gentle whisper. Puppies can't be gentle whisperers. They just can't. They don't have it in them. Okay. So, I'm going to add a little bit more dark Payne's gray to the shadow area in certain areas with my large brush here. Let's see, maybe over here too. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to take the number 2 round brush and fill in the eyes with some dark Payne's gray. And with that, I might do several layers. We shall see. I'm not sure where this is going. I just sort of had an idea in my head of what I wanted this to look like. Oh, painting is just so very relaxing. I should teach my puppy how to paint. That might relax him a little bit. Somehow I doubt it. I have a feeling he's going to be one of those dogs who never grows up and he's going to be a puppy for his whole life. I've had so many dogs in my lifetime, but he has the energy. Oh my. So that's a little more ghostish, but we are nowhere near done yet, my friends. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to add another layer of white. And I'm really going to clean off my brush, my large brush, because I did have gray on it. So I've got that white here. I'm going to add some clean water to it. And being very, very careful. I'm not going anywhere near that eye or the eyes. And I'm going to try to avoid putting gray on top of the darker areas for now. I said gray, I meant white. I'm going to avoid putting white on the darker areas. Sorry about that. Now remember, when you're working with watercolors, you can do layers as long as the layers underneath are dry. Okay. If they're not dry, then what happens is you're going to get a big mishmash of colors blending all together when maybe you don't want that to happen. So I have a little something there. Get off my page. There we go. That was just a dry piece of paint. So I am going to bring out the hairdryer again, and I will be back. Okay, so I'm going to work on the eyes and the mouth a little bit. And remember we had that Payne's gray in our palette. I'm just off camera going to add a whole bunch of water to that. I've got my number 2 brush, the small round brush. Just don't want to do this over my painting in case I drip. Okay, there we go. I want a very, very light wash of Payne's gray here. And I'm going to add a little bit of shadow underneath and around the eyes. And I may have to go in and do a couple of layers on this. And at the same time, I'm kind of wetting. There we go. That's what I was trying to achieve. I'm wetting around the eye that I just painted so that it's not as harsh. You see what I mean? It kind of blends in to the shadow around it. Just going to take a clean brush and get rid of that. There we go. I think that looks better than that. So I'm going to do that again with the other eye. Just a little bit of the gray around. And as it wets the eye, there we go. I'll be able to blend it better. I don't want so much gray though on my, oops, on my brush. So I'm wiping it off a little bit as I go. And then dipping it into that area so I can get a nice shadow around there. What do you think? You like that? I like it. I like it a lot. I'll do the same around the mouth. There we go. Wiping it off and back into that wash. I want to take some of that off though, because I still want the shape of the mouth. I don't want to lose the shape, but I do want to have a nice shadow around it. There we go. That looks good. So what can I work on now? Let me see. I might do another wash of the Payne's gray in certain areas. Just a wash. Those eyes look kind of creepy, but I'm not done with them yet. I'm going to make them look even creepier, I think. Okay, maybe what I can do with a clean brush is another wash of white in certain areas. I've got to be careful though, because I don't want to erase what I did around the eyes or around the mouth. I like to blend this a little better here. You guys, I'm kind of just winging things here. I have no plan. I'm just doing stuff. See, this was still wet, but now it's kind of creeping up. I like that. Just doing a bunch of layers. I like that too. That little bit of white there in between. Very nice. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to soften up around the ghost with my number 4 round and just, you know, a damp brush, just softening it up. Just using water, just to soften all that up. I am going to come back and put in those lines again though. But I just wanted the color to come out a little bit. Actually, I like what I'm doing here. It's kind of creating a bit of movement, isn't it? If you catch my drift. Do that on top too. I think our little ghost is looking kind of cool. So I'm going to pause again to blow dry, and then I'll come back and see what else I want to do. Well, my friends, I was looking at my ghost. It's not quite dry yet. And I realize I don't like the shape of it. Now, this happens to me a lot when I'm doing my paintings. I just don't like them, so I fix them. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do here. All of that outline that I did, I'm going to erase. Just getting rid of it. Just around the edge of, I guess, what you could call the head of the ghost, right? But that's okay. It brings that sort of, we can bring that out like this to give it that sort of idea of movement. Now my painting is very, very wet right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to dry it because I want to make the head a little bit more like this rather than like this, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to pause to dry again. Now here's what I'm going to do just to help myself out a bit. I've got my watercolor pencil here, and you might not be able to see what I'm doing because it's going to be very light. But I just want to give myself a little reference here where I'm going to put some darker lines. And I'm going to see if I like that or not. Okay, now I've got my liner brush, and I've got to put more Payne's gray into that palette, so I'm just doing that off camera, just so that I don't get it all over my painting. And I'm going to add some water, because I want it to be extremely light for now. I don't want it to be too dark, and if it's too dark, I'm going to have to wipe it off a little bit. So, let's see. If I follow my lines here, so that's a little dark for me. Okay. I'm whispering now. Be a gentle whisper, as Bob Ross said. Just blending a little. Where else did I want to put lines? Is it me, or does this almost look like Edvard Munch's The Scream? Maybe that's always in the back of my head. I love that. painting so much. I've done many variations of it, drawing. I've drawn it as Tweety Bird doing the scream, and I think I did, who else did I do? I did a snowman in the middle of winter doing the scream. It was just so much fun. I'm sure I did another version, I just can't remember. So now I'm going to take I think I'm going to take the number 4 round brush, and I'm going to do another whitewash in certain areas, maybe around the edges here. Just a little more water. Yeah, it does look like the scream. That means I don't want to touch it much anymore. I like what it looks like. All right, so let me try to do something with those eyes. I've got my liner brush, and this is pure paint here with the tiniest amount of white in there. And I'm going to see if that's strong enough for what I want to do, because I want this to be completely opaque. I don't want it to be transparent at all. So let's see, without getting my sleeve wet. There we go. That's what I wanted to do. Since I've got some white on here, I'm going to just do a little bit of highlighting, I think. That brings out the shadow a little better. As long as it's well blended, you know. All right, how about some white lines? Oh my gosh, that reminded me of a song. You 80s people might remember this. Oh gosh, who sang it? It was called White Lines. White lines, vision, dreams of passion running through my mind. Now this is not for kids to hear. It's about, you know, sugar up your nose, white lines. See that daintily. I forget who sang it, but now I want to listen to that song. It was great. I used to love those rap songs. That's what we called it in the 80s. Now it's hip hop. I don't know if it's different, but you know. Okay, so now what I want to do is take a little bit of the Payne's gray, and I'm going to mix it into the white. Just do a little bit of an outline around this fella. Hopefully I don't ruin it. My little scream ghost here. And I'm going to have to let this dry a little bit before I do a little more. So why don't I just blow dry a little bit and I will be back. Now something I noticed about this ghost is he's a little too perfect. I want him to be a little more tattered, if you know what I mean. So I am going to try to accomplish that with my Payne's gray here and a number 2 brush. He's too round here, you know. Maybe I need to blend a little better here so that we don't see that line around him. I don't want him to be that round, you know. I'm going to add a little bit of Payne's gray with my liner brush to here. Okay, and I'm going to outline something for myself here. And I know it's too dark right now, but that's okay. I'm going to fix it after. You see what I mean? Like he was too perfect. I want him to be a little tattered. So everywhere that I've kind of added that ripped cloth, I suppose you could call it, what I want to do is I'm going to take my number 4 brush, add some water to the Payne's gray, and put a shadow there. That's kind of what I was trying to do before, but I guess I went about it the wrong way. He became too round. Okay, he's not as round as he was before, and so I like that. And I am going to try to soften up this area here. That was a little too dark. I cannot not see the scream right now. That's all I can see in this. What do they say? Imitation is the greatest form of flattery. So Mr. Edward Munch, thank you so much for bringing that beautiful painting into our lives and all of the other great works of art that you created as you suffered through life. There we go. Oh, this is looking cool. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. But I'm seeing a little too much roundness down here, too. Need more jagged lines. There we go. Oh, that's good. Okay, so let me see if I can do this now. I've got my liner brush. And I may not like it. I'm going to try something. Got my little Payne's gray here. I'm going to try to make some very light lines. Wow. I really like what I'm doing here, guys. I hope you do. I want to keep that scream idea in here now. There we go. Put a little bit of some jagged lines down here too, to indicate the difference between the ghost and the shadow. I was not intending on this being a screamy kind of thing. But I'm so glad I did this. Very nice. All right. I'm so used to it, but I'm sure you're hearing my dogs snoring. There we go. Now, last but not least, I have my large brush with some white. Let's water that down a little, and I'm just going to kind of go around. Don't have to, but I am someone who likes to cover the canvas. Oops, I've got some paper towels in the way there. Let me move those. There we go. And it kind of softens up the edges a little bit too there. I'm going to do something else too when this dries. I'm going to give it a bit of a splatter. I love doing splatters. Maybe a little Payne's gray here too. Oh yes, I like that. A little Payne's gray. Just a touch in the background. My paper is so wet, my canvas is so wet that it's starting to actually, pieces of it are coming off. All those little dots that you see there. This is a bit too dark, so I'm going to move all this out. There we go. I just want a hint of gray down here. And I'm kind of purposely doing this type of thing so that it gives it some movement. There we go. Hey guys, can you take it easy? Can you take it easy? Mommy's almost done. So I don't know if I'm going to do splatter after all. I kind of like this. I'm going to see what it looks like when it dries, and then I'll make my decision. Well, I decided that I think I want to do some splatter effect on this. So I'm going to put some Payne's gray into my, if my dogs will settle down, into my palette here. And you have to add water to get a good splatter. I want it to be dark, but I don't want it to be too dark or too light. Okay, I'm going to use this number 4 brush here, but I don't want to get any splatter onto my little ghost here. So I'm going to start from one side, and I'm going to kind of hide him a little bit. He's a he, I guess. So here's how you do splatter. You take a brush, and you fill it with paint, tap it once or twice, and then take another pencil or a paintbrush and you go like this. Okay, that's how you do the splatter. And see what I did here? If you go like this, you get little bits of splatter. So that's one side. I'm going to switch to the other. And beware, my friends, it gets everywhere. So don't do it if you have your computer in front of you. You don't want to do that. Okay. I'm going to do the top now. Same thing. Load up my brush. Tap it a couple of times so you don't get huge blobs. And then there you go. And then do this a couple of times if you want. Okay, now let's do this side. Same thing, loading up my brush, off camera, tap tap, and I have paint all over my hands, little splatter. There we go. Okay, let's take a look at that. Oh, I like that. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to pull the masking tape off. Okay, so I'm going to pull the masking tape off very carefully. Okay. All my dogs are uppity right now, so I'm sorry for that noise in the background. I have a nice frame going on. It looks great. I'm actually going to put this on a different background so you can see it better. So there it is, my friends, my watercolor ghost that looks, interestingly enough, like Edvard Munch's The Scream. I did not do that on purpose, but I'm very, very happy it looks that way. I hope you enjoyed this video today, my friends. If you did, please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you don't want to miss out on future uploads. Please leave me a comment. I love all your comments and I do reply to them. And please share this with anyone you think might enjoy it. I'll see you next time on Rain Francis Art. Take care. Bye.